Hi, my name's Keith Cooper from Northlight Images, and welcome to everybody. Happy New Year for 2025. This video is going to be a look at new printers that I expect we may or may not see during the year, and also some lenses as well. In particular, the kind of specialist lenses I tend to look at, tilt shift lenses, things like that. 2024 was not the best of years for us. As some people may know, both of Karen's parents died during the year. My father died the end of the year before. So there are a lot of things that I've been meaning to review. I have a table full of stuff here that I got to get round to finishing off doing, and hopefully a bit more time this year and I can cover a few things. As ever, questions are always welcome. If you have suggestions, please do let me know. I do appreciate all the comments and feedback I've had over the year through this channel and directly by email, because quite often I get ideas for videos and testing things. It's based on people asking me questions about stuff. But let's get straight into it for lenses. Now, the important caveat here is lenses that I use. I'm an architectural, industrial photographer. I do commercial photography, which means my speciality is tilt shift lenses. Now, and I have a book that I wrote about them, but what ones can we expect to see? Well, I would seriously hope that Canon get their act together and finally get around to updating some tilt shift lenses for the RF lens mount. You still, if you want a tilt shift from Canon, you've still got the 17mm and the 24mm from 15 years ago now, nearly. They are good, but they are showing their age. You need to use an adapter. So, and if you want some of the others, there are the newer lenses. There's the 50, the 90 and the 135, which are good lenses, very good lenses, but they're still EF mount. I'm sure there are aspects that Canon could make much more use of the shorter flange distance of the RF mount for that and produce some interesting stuff. Now, the 50, for example, the TSE 50 is an excellent lens, and I use it with my Fuji GFX 100S, and it works really well. Now, I'm testing as well. I've got the Laowa 55mm tilt shift, which is a new lens that they've brought out, and that's one I'm going to be testing in the next few weeks, along with some other similar lenses. But what about stuff from Canon? Well, I'm going to say many people have almost given up waiting. It's one of the reasons why I switched over to the Fuji GFX system. Not just the medium format, the 100 megapixels and stuff, but sheer availability of lenses like the Fuji 30mm tilt shift. I would hope that Canon will finally get round to doing, as I say, some RF mount versions of them. It would be nice. I think most people are not, as I say, holding the breath for it. Nikon for tilt shift lenses, well, theirs are distinctly old. They also suffer from being based on the quite narrow F mount, which causes coverage issues even when you adapt it to the much larger Z mount. Now, the Z mount is an excellent mount for adapting lenses, but whatever, if you use one of the Nikon tilt shift or PCE lenses, perspective control lenses, you need to go through an adapter, which there's a constriction from the being F mount, and that can limit things for larger shift. I'm sure with modern optics they could do much better, and lots of people are asking why aren't they? I'm sure it's commercial reasons, and it's just not seen as a priority. I wish it was, because the Nikon Z mount system, the mirrorless system, is very good. I've tried it out. I've got, as I say, the Fuji system. I recently got a Canon R5, picked up a second-hand one, well used but very good condition, and I'm using that for testing. So I've got stuff to test on that as well, so I will be doing that. But yeah, what is there to use in new tilt shifts? There isn't anything much apart from the Laowa ones and a few other makes, but they're manual focus usually. Fujifilm, well, they brought out the excellent 30 and the longer 110 millimeters, was it? Yes. I've got the 30mm, very expensive, superb quality lens. There are gaps in the range. I would expect The best we'll get, I think, is perhaps an announcement of some fill-in focal lengths for that. So we might see a 24 millimeter lens. The optics, that's going to be expensive to get the quality from it for that, for the coverage for medium format. I'd also expect maybe something 55, 60 millimeters to give you that extra slightly narrower field of view. It's why I have the TSE-50, which works very well on the GFX. It's a focal length that's very useful for that. So I've got that. Oh yes, of course, there's Sony as well. I'm tempted to say who, because in specialist lenses, Sony have never produced anything like that. Now, yes, they've got lots of other lenses and some very good lenses to go with their system, but obviously they never thought their systems were going to appeal to the likes of me, architectural photographers, people who use product photography who do use tilt-shift lenses. So there is an aspect of that as well. Sony are also, incidentally, the only large camera company that don't give me the time of day. Even Hasselblad contacted me and said, we've got such and such new system, would you like to have a look at it? So yeah, ask me and I happily will look at stuff. It's just presumably reaching the right person for it, but as yet I've never ever tested any more advanced Sony stuff. Well, who knows? Some people tell me it's good, some people tell me not to bother. I would like to see for myself actually, but anyway. So that's lenses, that's specialist lenses. There'll be lots of other lenses as well. There'll be zooms and things like that. I don't really follow much in the lens related sort of and camera related rumours stuff anymore. I set up one of the original camera rumour pages, printer rumour pages, over 20 years ago now. The very first ones, long before all the xyzrumours.com sites appeared and things like that. I don't actively maintain it anymore. I don't get the info, probably because I actually work far more with the companies these days, so I'm less likely to get sort of leaked info, and if I do get info then I've probably signed an NDA for it, so I can't tell anyone anyway about it. But two bits of the website that I do look after still are the Canon printer and Epson printer rumours page. Now, there's not much about this, and it's not a fast moving field. But I have got, on each page, I've got a timeline. This is an Epson one, and here is a Canon one. Now these, I need to update them for 2025. That's one of the things I have to do every year, so I have to go around and remember update the copyrights and things like that at this time of year. But here we have Canon printer timeline. So what have we got in the way of upcoming Canon printers? Well, I don't see a replacement at all for the 200, the Canon Pro 200. It's just been announced, the 200S. Now the 200 to 200S is a pretty minimal update. There's not much change between them. It's a bit of communications aspects and things. If you see a Pro 200S for sale in a shop somewhere, the only real thing you know about it is that it must be current stock rather than slightly older stock if it's a 200. There is no reason, if you're offered a good deal on a brand new unused 200, to go, no, I want a 200S. You're really not going to see any difference between them. I did a video about that anyway. What about the 300? Will we see an S version of the 300? Well, we did for the Pro 10, which was the predecessor for the 300. And these are models that last a long while. I mean, there's the same print head in the 300 as there was in the Pro 10, and in the 200 as there was the 100. So these things go on. Canon do not change much. Just look at the relatively limited changes between the Canon Pro 1000 and the Pro 1100 that I recently reviewed. I do still have the 1100 here. It's sitting downstairs in the kitchen, and I will do some more testing on it before it goes back to Canon. It is an excellent printer. I've got lots of articles and videos about it if anyone's interested in it. So in terms of Canon stuff like that, well, no, I'm not seeing any significant changes. If we do, I would be very surprised if it's this year. If we get something, it might be next year. But yeah, the chances are it'll still look the same shape and it'll be roughly the same. They're running out of differences. What about ink tank printers? Now, this is an Epson 8550, and I'll come back to this in a bit because this is still the one I'm recommending to people. And I'll say why in a bit. But what about Canon ink tank printers? At the moment, I tested the G550, very nice little printer. The emphasis on little. It's an A4 letter size maximum printer. There is nothing larger. There are no larger Canon ink tank printers. So if you want something this size, you won't get it. You need to go up to the 200, the 300 with ink cartridges, which are not ink tank printers. Lots of people like ink tank printers because the inks are cheaper, and if the inks are cheaper and come in bulk, there's less of resistance to testing and experimenting with things by just doing some printing, if you're not worried about cartridges running out and things like that. So it does work out cheaper. Unfortunately, Canon have a very distinct market segmentation policy. In fact, most companies do if you look at the product range. But Canon in particular don't really want to do, as far as at the moment, a larger version of their ink tank printers. Their ink tank printers are small printers. They're not, they are not like this type of one. It's A3 plus 13 inch. Now, you go for the bigger Canon, something like the TC20M that I tested, a 24-inch printer, which is an ink tank printer, although the inks work out relatively expensive for ink tank printers for that, but it's a 24-inch printer. It's a reasonable price, reasonable quality. I've covered that. There'll be more stuff on that, and I hope to look at some more examples of that sort of printer this year if I get a chance to, just to expand the range of coverage. I will not be looking at low-end printers, I'm afraid, because one, they are much of a muchness, and two, the kind of kit and stuff I do to get the best out of them is not available to most people in terms of colour management, in terms of making profiles and stuff like that. But for Canon, it would be nice if there was a larger version of the G550 or something like that. But there's one other problem there, and that tells me a lot about how Canon see that printer in the market. And that is the fact that if you use a Max, and I use Max for most things, there's no colour management support on it. You can't use profiles. Now, I found a workaround for this that's in my G550 review, but I shouldn't have to do stuff like that. For the Canon G550, there is no colour management on Max. Also, similarly to that, the Pro 1100 that I'm testing only works on my newer Macs. I can't use it. There are no printer drivers for older systems. Epson do support older systems, and kudos to them for keeping the support going, because there is no reason that I should go, let's say I got a Pro 1000 and I was using it happily off a Mac Pro that I'd got for a few years, and I'm using it, and then I go, oh, I'll get an 1100 because the 1000 is playing up or something like that. I get that, I've bought myself a new printer, and lo and behold, I need a whole new computer because my one that works perfectly well, does everything I want, isn't supported. Now, I don't like that. That is almost certainly driven by cost reasons, profitability, investment. It's showing things. It just comes across as a bit mean-spirited. I would like to, don't get me wrong, the 1100 is a brilliant printer, but if you've got a slightly older computer, you may want to still look at getting 1000 whilst it's still supported and you can use it. Now, this happens all the time with different bits of kit and things and that, but I don't like feeling that somebody could have done something, but they chose not to try and make you buy a more expensive product instead. It doesn't fit with with how I like doing things, but yeah, there you go. So, will we see A3 size? No, from Canon, I don't think we will. What about pigment ink printers in ink tank printers? I don't think we're going to see that in smaller printers either. Okay, what about Epson? Well, I've said this, the 8550, still my recommendation for get into printing. That's partly because it's an ink tank printer. It's also partly because of its mixed ink set with a pigment black as well as a dye black. Understand how the ink set works in this on different media settings, and that's the key to getting the quality out of this. But anyway, I've got lots of stuff, got to review all sorts of things on this one here. Will we see an update for this year? I don't think so. I certainly hope not, given that we bought one at the end of last year specifically for Karen's office. Now, all right, it sits here at the moment, and I'm sure Karen's going to want it moving up to her office at some point, but at the moment I'm still doing some experimenting with it here. That's it. Will we see newer versions of printers like this? Yes, I think Epson will expand that range. You will see more Ecotank printers, or more to the point, you'll see more model numbers. There are so many of them, I do have difficulty keeping up. But will this be superseded? I don't think it will, not really. Not yet, not for a good couple of years or so. This has got plenty of life in it. And I say it's ink tank, so you top it up, it's relatively cheap to use. So I'm going to be making, by the way, more profiles for this as I get some more papers. It's quite easy to do for me here. I've got the kit to be able to do it, and they are. I've had a lot of people say they're very useful things. If you want to see about the profiles, have a look at some of my other videos, have a look at the review, the main written review of it. I put links to all of this stuff in the notes for the video if you want to find out any more information. But anyway, what about, I mentioned the Canon Pro 200-300. What about the next ones up from this? The still cartridge-based ones from Epson, the P700, the P900. The P700, I suspect there are people at Epson who've looked at the success of this and the success of the P700 and gone, this has impinged on another product. Yeah, so what? Unfortunately, the way big companies are organised in divisions and that, if a product from one division's, surpasses a product from another division, people don't necessarily think, oh, well, look, the company's doing better. We're selling more printers. We're selling more ink. There's a bit of competitiveness in there. So the P700, I'd say, is at the weakest end of things. What could Epson really do without bringing out a new printer? Because I think we're a couple of years away from actual replacements of the 700, 900. What I think they could do is look at the size of the ink cartridges that the P700 and the P900 take. The P700 is 25mm ink cartridges. The P900 has, is it 50mm or 80mm? I can't remember, but I think it's 50mm cartridges. Why not allow P900 cartridges to be used in a P700? Why not introduce a range of higher capacity cartridges? So then you're getting the quality of the P700, P900, and I've tested these extensively and they are very good. You're getting that with some of the ease of use of ones like this. Now, people have said, yeah, they'd like to see a pigment version of this. Yes, you can, of course, buy one of these new and set it up with third-party pigment inks. Causes problems if you want a warranty or something like that, but you can do it. I would expect perhaps we might see some movement on the P700, P900 ink cartridge size. I don't know. I don't know for certain. I'm at a point where this is conjecture. So there we have. But it's ink costs that do matter to people. And I think that's one reason why people sort of look at the P700 and think, well, yeah, it's a nice printer, and it is a very nice printer, but I don't like the fact that it's got those ink cartridges in it. They expect more. You're not going to get this perhaps, but perhaps, I say, bigger cartridges or something like that. But anyway, what others? What about bigger printers? Well, for Canon, the 2600, 4600, which use the same ink sets as the 1100, were introduced about a year ago. There's going to be no replacements of those for years to come. Canon, as I said, like if they find something that works, they stick with it. So they'll keep going with that one for a while. You're not going to see anything there. What about something like the Epson P7500? Now, P7500 I did test when it was here. I had one here down in the kitchen. Lovely printer. The 9500, the bigger version of it, the 44-inch version, is one of those that we may be moving home this year, and if we do, one of the requirements for it is going to be a larger space for me to work in rather than this office. You just see this view here. I see all the stuff that surrounds me in the office, and it's very full of stuff. So we may be, and I may be looking for a larger format printer. Now that could be a Canon 2600, 4600. Or it could be an Epson P7500, 9500. But I look at these, and these charts here that remind me of the dates, how long things have been gone, suggests to me, when I look at the Epson one here, we've got, okay, 7500, but Epson have different versions. So there's the 9500, but there's also the 8500 that I tested. Now, I wouldn't be surprised to see an evolution of the 9500 that's in the same chassis as the 8500. Likely the same print head. There'll be a few other changes and various things as well. But the chassis of the 8500 is a much more modern design than the one that you see in the 9500 and the 7500. So I would see perhaps a change there. Will you see any changes in inkjet and print head and things like that? I think probably not. But that could be quite a major change, and I think it would warrant a different model number, not a letter added on the end of it. And so we might end up with something from the P7500. We might see a 7600, 7800. 7900, who knows? Look at Epson's previous numbering schemes to work out what you think there. So there you have it. That's a broad overview of saying that I'm not expecting anything significantly new in many areas. But what that does mean was that if somebody said, should I buy one of these? I'd go, yes. If they went, should I buy a Pro 200? Pro 300, Pro 1000, Pro 1100 from Canon? I'd go, yeah, why not? If they meet your needs, buy them. Should I buy a Canon G series, one of the small ones? Well, if it meets your needs, then it's good, it has value. I wouldn't want one because it's not supported on Macs. You may think, well, that's your fault for using a Mac. Well, it don't work like that. This is what I've used for the last 40 years now, almost, ever since, it must be getting on for that, since Macs first came out. 30 odd years, they're not that old. But anyway, that's what I would like to see, what I expect. Lenses, please Canon, can we see some interesting tilt shift lenses? Fuji, can we see some new lenses on a par with those ones you've produced already? Anyway, I hope that's of interest. If you've got questions, please do let me know. As I said, this is largely conjecture. We shall see what comes during the year. I hope everyone has a great year. We're not far into 2025 and I've got no complaints yet, but these things happen, and you never know. So make the most of it, get out there, take more photos and print them. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.